I'm just establishing some context. So he's writing to them, and he says, before the way of faith in Christ was available to us, we were placed under the guard by law. So he's talking about this old covenant that they were all a part of. We were kept in protective custody, so to speak, until the way of faith was revealed. So there's going to be this change in identity that comes to them. That's what he's talking about. Verse 24, let me put it another way. The law was our guardian until Christ came. The law was never to be their identity. Their identity was to always be found in God, but they lifted up the law above it. It protected us until we could be made right with God through faith. And now that the way of faith has come, we no longer need the law as our guardian. So what he's saying was, this other thing that we had in our lives was not meant to be lifted up above God. It served a purpose, and it was meant to lead us to God. But if you lift it up above God, it's actually going to separate you from God. So, like any blessing that God gives you, if you identify with that blessing, you can actually lift it up above God, and it can become dangerous. I shared this years ago, but let me share it again, okay? I talked earlier about my identity as a cowboy, right? Well, I can remember when we lived here in town, and I hated it. Because of that, part of that identity, not only do I like, cattle and horses and all that kind of stuff, I want to be identified as that. I know that sounds weird, but you know what? We're all like that, okay? So you can look at me like I'm weird. I am, but we're all like this. So I was super frustrated, and I really wanted to, in part, be out because I wanted to have that identity. Well, here was the problem. God wasn't allowing it because of this. I was lifting that identity up above my identity as a follower of Christ. I actually was. That's what I was doing. What's the danger in that? The danger is that when decisions come to me, instead of saying, what does Jesus want me to do? I think, what would a cowboy do in this situation? I mean, that could be pretty bad, right? I mean, that's going to be all about me. That's not going to be about protecting people and whatever. I mean, there's some good parts of it, but there are some really bad parts. You have identities too. You have things that you're drawn into. And not all of it's bad, okay? I identify as Nikki's husband. I identify as my kid's dad. I identify as the pastor of this church. But even identifying as the pastor of this church, if I lift that up above a follower of Jesus, guess what? Everything's going to become about me. I'm going to become a super selfish person, and I'm going to make decisions without realizing it. I'm going to think they're good decisions, and they're actually awful decisions. My identity as a follower of Jesus must be lifted up above everything else. And he's going to get into this as we go into verse 26. For you are all children of God through faith in Christ Jesus. So that's their identity. Their identity is not a person of the law, a person of the old covenant, a Jew, whatever. Their identity is a child of God in Christ Jesus. And all who have been united with Christ in baptism have put on Christ like putting on new clothes. Remember when I told you, when I put the uniform on, something happens? And I'm not joking, okay? I literally feel it, like it affects my mind, and it literally does. When you receive Christ, you are putting something on. And it affects your identity, it's going to affect your decisions and all that. But here's the thing. You got to choose to do it every single day. Like, you can't just go up, get dunked, and all right, I'm good. I mean, you probably heard the joke about, the husband who said, I told you I loved you when we got married. If I change my mind, I'll let you know, okay? No, it doesn't work that way. Every day, I've got to put Christ on. And the way I do that is I get in the Word. I spend time with Him. I listen to Him. I put this on, and when I do that, as I go outside, it affects the decisions I make automatically because of this. I see myself as a follower of Jesus. But if I see myself as something else, I'm going to start to act that way. So if you're wanting greater freedom in your life than you now have, this is part of the way that you do that. You put on this identity. I'm a follower of Jesus. If you lift anything else up above that, you're going to start to act like that, whatever it is. Okay, you know, like, again, talking about identities, one of the things that we hear about in our culture right now, well, I identify as this. You know, I identify as a different sex than I was born. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. If I start to do that, I am going to start to act out automatically in ways that I think identify with that. It's just going to start to happen. That's why I'm using the whole identity. And the reason that the enemy brings that into it is because when I do that, what happens is I miss out on my true identity. Your true identity is a follower of Jesus above everything else. Your true identity is a child of God. Even if you've never accepted him, that's your true identity. And as long as you reject your true identity and you receive any other identity, you're going to be miserable. Because that's how you were made. You're going to be miserable. But if you accept your true identity, then what's going to happen is you're going to start to walk out that identity. You're going to start to make decisions according to that identity. And you're going to experience life and power in a way that you never had. All right, so verse 27. All who have been united with Christ in baptism have put on Christ, like putting on new clothes. There is no longer Jew or Gentile, slave or free, male or female, for you are all in Christ Jesus. And now that you belong to Christ, you are the true children of Abraham. You are his heirs, and God's promise to Abraham belongs to you. So he's going back to that Abraham thing, because that's the thing they were wrestling with. They're like, oh, we're children of Abraham, and they were lifting that up above, I'm a follower of Jesus. We can do that with church. Some of you might see yourself as, well, I'm a Baptist. Well, I'm a Methodist. Well, I'm a Presbyterian. Or maybe I'm a non-denominational. Even that, any of that. If you lift that up above a follower of Jesus, you're set up for deceit. You are set up for deceit. Because here's why. You will start to make decisions without actually thinking through things according to what you think a Baptist would do. According to what you think a Methodist would do. According to what you think a Pentecostal would do. That's all trash. What am I to do? What a follower of Jesus would do. That is my identity. Now, does that mean I can't have other identities? No. When he says there's neither Jew nor Gentile, male nor female, does he mean we're all now asexual? No. I'm still a man, but you know what? I am going to identify as a man second to the fact that I'm a follower of Jesus. And what that's going to do is, that's going to affect how I make decisions according to what I believe a man is. Because I'm going to ask myself, what would Jesus, the ultimate man, do in this situation? And I'm going to try to follow that out. But if I've been given other examples of what a man is, of people who didn't follow Jesus, or even people who said they followed Jesus, but they didn't fully follow Jesus and they had other paradigms, I'm going to start to act out in ways that, again, are actually harmful to me and harmful to others. And I'm not even going to think about it, and I'm going to think it's right. I want to define things according to my identity as a follower of Jesus. Am I going to fulfill other roles? Yes, but I never want to lift anything else up above Jesus. So here's the question. Here's where we're kind of landing and coming into. How do you identify yourself? When someone comes up to you and without you even thinking, and they're like, you know, who are you? Tell me about yourself. Where do you place your identity? When you want someone to know who you are, where do you place your identity? And the reason I ask that is because that's going to give you a look into what could possibly be competing and taking away from your identity in Christ and your freedom in Christ. Again, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's just that you become aware and you're like, oh, Okay? Again, going back to the political thing. You can be a part of a political party. That's okay, all right? But you do not want to lift that up above your identity in Jesus. Your identity in Jesus comes first, and then you take that in to everything else. I want to take my identity in Jesus into what it is to be a man, into what it is to be a husband, into what it is to be a father. I don't want to just do what my dad and my grandfather did. Some of it was good, some of it was bad. How do I decide which is which? I look to the Word, and I look to what God would have me do. But I want you to hear this. So what is it? What are those things that are competing? It's not bad for you to have other identities, but you just need to be aware of it. And is there one that you're lifting up above Jesus? It's going to take away from the freedom. You're going to make decisions. You're not even going to think about it, and it is going to impact you. So I want to invite you, because Jesus is inviting you. He wants you to enter a covenant with him, just like a man and a wife, okay? And you take on his identity. Just like a wife would take on the name of the husband, he wants you to take on that identity. This is who you are. You take on that name. There's power in that. As you walk in that, I'm telling you, you're going to begin to make decisions that are full of power and grace. And are you going to do everything perfectly? No. But it's going to begin to transform you as you continue to walk this out and keep coming back to it. Keep coming back to it. This is who I am. There's power in belonging. There's power in identity. God is calling you to be his. Jesus is calling you to be his. What is your answer? Jesus, thank you.